Good evening and welcome back to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. We have Arla Collett Williams with us tonight. And we spoke with Arla last weekend and we just touched the very surface on who she is and how she got to where she's at. So Arla, would you like to pick it up where we left off and tell us how you got to where you are now?
Okay. In 2009, I had met, I'd gone to a workshop with one of the grandmothers from the International Council of Indigenous Grandmothers. There were 13 who were from around the earth. They weren't just Native American. They were all different. And the first one that I went to was Grandmother Aggie, who was at that time the oldest member of the 13 grandmothers. And it ended up that I went to her gathering for all the grandmothers in Lincoln City, Oregon. And that was a feat for me to get there. I did not have the finances to go, but the finances came. Some of it materialized in my pouch, that it was not there. No one had access to my pouch, but it was said that I should be there. And so I'm hearing myself back. Are you hearing that?
Let me try this. How's that now?
Okay. Yep. No. Yep. That it's better, but I can still.
You still hear it?
Yep.
Hang on. Try it now.
Okay. All right.
That better?
There we go. Yay. Yes. And so anyway, it happened that I got to go. I hadn't flown since 1976. So that was a whole new adventure for me as well. Grandmother Aggie had told me when we were at the gathering in Kansas City, and I got to talk to her personally a lot. And there had been some messages given to me. Sanat Kumara, who is an ascended master, had come and gave me some messages over a period of time. And so we talked about those, and she looked at me and she stuck her finger up and pointed at me and she said, "You got something to say. You better be saying it." Well, that was very much true. I didn't know at that time what it was going to be, but we just knew I had to be in Lincoln City, Oregon. And so I got there. Oh my gosh, it was phenomenal. It was those grandmothers. Oh my gosh, they are such wonderful women. And I've got to know several of them personally. And so, anyway, I was told a week before I went out there that a door was going to open to me and it would be my decision to walk through it or not. So I started a week out going to an area here and sitting of a morning and praying, and then going back of an evening and sitting and praying. So I get out there, we get to see each one of the grandmothers would have a teaching. And, we're talking about people from, or women from Gabon, Africa, where talking about women that live in the Amazon forest, um, and women from all around. Grandmother Searing had escaped when China had come in and taken over Tibet. It has been called a female Dalai Lama for a lot of people. So I said she spoke so softly and she carried the biggest stick. It was just amazing, her energy. So we're totally enjoying this, and I'm with some friends. So, I mean, I'd never been to Oregon, and it was, I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm still pinching myself to see that I'm really here and witnessing all the things that I am. Well, we had gotten through until Thursday. Grandmother Omabombo, who was from Nepal, and grandmother Searing, who was originally from Tibet, were going to have that day to do their teachings and blessings. So they always put a big cornmeal circle, which is sacred space, and the grandmothers could be within that, and we would not, everybody that was there, which was hundreds of people, would not crowd in onto them, but respect that circle and stay behind it. Well, grandmother Alma Bombo, I was like, oh my gosh, what is she going to do? I know I want to see her and I want to be up close. And I knew that she was associated with Kali. And Kali is a very, very strong figure. And she takes care of ego. And she's depicted sometimes several arms, and she can rip that head of the ego right off. So we get there really early. We're some of the first ones that get there that morning, and we are getting as close as we can get. And we're still going to be, a good ways away from her. Well, we're sitting there waiting, and her people who take care of her came into the circle, and they brought a big board like a plywood, and brought it and set it down not 5 feet in front of us, and her rugs and her drum and everything, and there she was, 5 feet from us. And I'm just mesmerized. I mean, here I'm this woman from Oklahoma who's seen lots and lots of stuff in her life, but I am so excited to see what she does. And so we're sitting there, and she begins to call Kali. And she says, come, Kali, come, come, Kali, come. And I'm thinking, I don't think I want to be 5 feet from her if Kali goes through her, because I know how strong Kali is. But she was remarkable. Oh my gosh. She literally levitated off of that board. You could see underneath her. We
Wow.
were, it was just, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then after she finished, grandmother Searing came, and hers was so powerful, and she just it's like she got right in your heart, and you could feel everything that she had done and all that she had been through, and how she was sending all this love to everybody. It was just amazing. And so that's Thursday, and I'm thinking, Well, I was told that while I was here, a door would be open, and it sounded mysterious. And the other grandmothers I knew things about, and there were the long visitor Holy Dance sisters who are Lakota Sioux, grandmother Margaret Bayhan, who is Cheyenne Arapaho and is from here in Oklahoma, and others that I knew what they taught, but I hadn't been around anyone like Grandmother Amabamba or Grandmother Searing. So, we were just, it's almost speechless. And I can't even begin to explain the depth of how it affected me. Well, that evening, they were doing a blessing, and Grandmother Omabombo had asked anyone who wanted to be blessed to, you line up, and you've got hundreds of people lining up. And so it gets my turn. And of course, she's sitting on the ground. And so I bend down in front of her, and I'm on my knees, and, I bend my head over, and she puts her hands on my head, and she begins to bless me. And I'm just in such a wonderful, wonderful state. And it occurs to me, I wonder if that door will open tonight. And so I get up, and I walk off by myself for a little while. And I'm real quiet. I'm in a very contemplative place, and I see the door. And I did not hesitate. I said, "Yes, I'll walk through the door." I don't have any idea what I'm walking through the door to, but I'm going to walk through it. Now, I was told before that if I chose to walk through that door, that people would say, "How can you work with that energy? How can you be around that energy?" And I could not figure out what in the world that would be. Because up to that point, I had never spoken publicly about the Bigfoot people ever. And so that didn't even enter my mind at all. And so I just said, yes, I walked through the door. And I had such a peace about walking through that door. I knew that whatever it was, that it would be okay. If I had at that time thought it was going to be about talking about the Bigfoot people, I don't know what I would have thought at that point. But I had such a peace, that it was what I was supposed to do.
You knew
So
that was the road you were supposed to take.
yes, that was what I was going to do. And everything's going through my head. Grandmother Aggie pointing her finger at me and saying, "You've got something to say, and you best be saying it." And then, I'm told a door is gonna open to you, and it's your choice. You can go through it or not go through it. But if you do, people are, basically going to say you're nuts. So, but at that point, I knew in my heart that was what I was supposed to do. And so that's what I did, not knowing. Well, we finished the weekend with the grandmothers. It was amazing. So, so amazing. And we go back home. Well, I get home on a Saturday, And my sister-in-law calls and she's like, okay, I want to know everything that happened. Let's go get something to eat. And so the next day, she and I go off to a little place around the lake and we go eat and we're sitting there, visiting, and I'm telling her all this stuff. And she was so funny. Her eyes were so big because she had never, been around that either. I mean, she spent a big part of her life in South Carolina. So, um, but and even at that point, I had no idea. So we get up and leave, and they publish this paper around the lake of things that are going on around the lake. So I pick it up and I think, well, I'll read it, later. Well, I didn't read it later. I read it the next morning, and I'm talking to one of my friends on the phone, and she was there with me and knew, everything that was going on. And in that paper, there was an article with a big picture of a footprint of one of the Bigfoot people down on the river. And I'm going, that is so cool. I know they're here around, but I mean that just that being in that paper, it was all part of what was going on. So somebody had control of the news media, I guess, or something. But we were talking and she said, a footprint. And I'm like, yeah, a footprint. And she said, Bigfoot. I said, yeah. She said, people won't understand how you can. And I say, no, it's not Bigfoot. No, I know for certain that I'm not going to be talking about them, So we leave it at that. Well, that night, I'm awakened with the stench. And I'm like, and it doesn't even dawn on me because it's been very rare that I've ever smelled that. And I couldn't remember the last time I smelled it. And I'm like, what the heck? So I get up and I go find my dog, Watto. I blow my stuff. I'm like, oh my God, please don't let her be sick. So I go in there. She's not sick. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I just sit down for a while and then it's just gone, and I'm like, So I go on back to bed and it happens again, but it's not as strong. And I'm like, no. And so I talked to my friend and she said, stench, smell, the Bigfoot people. And I went, no. It was like, no, this can't, no.
Yes.
Why would I talk about them? I mean, in public, I've spent my whole life not doing that. Why would I do that? And, she's going down the whole line of, well, you know what Grandmother Aggie said? And you said you would go through the door, even though you didn't know what it was. And I was still like, I don't know. Well, on Tuesday, I'm sitting out in the back and I'm sitting in my swing. I've got an old swing that I'll sit in. And I would sit there and sing or drum or, meditate or pray or whatever. And that day I was just kind of in another place of quiet contemplation, and I heard footsteps coming up. Now, I did not open my eyes because somewhere in me, I knew what I was going to see when I opened my eyes, but I didn't open my eyes until it got right in front of me. I could have reached out and touched him.
Wow.
And I opened my eyes and I looked at him, and all he said to me was, "I am Kashima." There was such a reverence and such an awe and such a loving feeling. I just dropped my head and closed my eyes and listened as he walked away.
Wow.
And after that, after a bit, he came and he started, talking with me. And it wasn't very long after that I got thrown into the mix of the Bigfoot research world. What had happened was we had invited grandmother Margaret Bayhan, the Cheyenne Arapaho grandmother, to come to Kansas and do another gathering and teaching workshop. And while we were there, she had asked me to take over one of the teaching deals. When she would take time off, someone would come and talk, basically. And I was just so honored that she asked me to do that. And yet I was scared to death. What the heck am I going to talk about? What am I going to bring to this that's going to be, worthy of this whole thing that's going on? And my one friend said, "You're going to talk about Kashima." And I'm like, "I don't think so." And she said, "Oh, yes, you are." So I said, "Okay, I will listen." And like I do a lot of times, if I'm asked to speak or teach or whatever, I don't get anything ready. I just go into my heart and ask that I'm guided and given the words that I need to say. And I did that. And after I did that, I started talking about Kashima and the things that he was bringing to me and how he dealt with these wonderful sound vibrations that we could do that were very healing for us. And I was guided the whole time. That, I know I was. So, I finished speaking and a lot of questions were asked about them, because they already know from, what's going on in the world that people are talking about the Bigfoot people. So I answered questions and, it was okay. Well, grandmother Margaret was giving some of us Cheyenne names. And I was doing dishes and she come in and she said, "Do you want a name?" And I said, "Well, yes, grandmother, but you go and sit with the others and I'll get these dishes done and get everything taken care of in here. And then I will come." And she said, "No, do you want a name?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So she took me outside and she said some prayers and asked for guidance and some other things. And she turned around and she looked at me, and I know I'm going to say this wrong, but it was a mayut. And I said, "What does that mean, grandmother?" And she said, "Woman that goes down the road." Well, at that time, I hadn't been doing any traveling. Yeah, I went, to Oregon, but I wasn't doing any extensive traveling at that time. And it was just another thing that I was told that was like people, were telling me this is what's going to happen and this is what's going to happen and this is what's, going to happen. And so we finished the gathering and it was just amazing. I met a lot of really, really nice, wonderful, open-hearted people. I got to spend time with some people that I'd grown to care about. And so it was just wonderful. Well, I get home and I'm home for 2 or 3 days, and I get a phone call from this woman that I'd met. And she said, your talk about Kashima really moved me. She said, I see the love and I see the reverence and the respect that you have for him. And I have a very good friend who needs some help. He really needs some help. And I just wondered if you would talk to him. And she said, he is Ponca Kiowa male and he's very traditional. And I thought, this traditional Indian man is going to come to me, this very white looking woman, even though I do carry, some native blood. He's not going to come to me to ask me questions, and for sure, not about the Bigfoot people. And so I just told her, I said, yes, if he needs me, you can give him my phone number. And I said, let me have his phone number so I'll know who it is calling. And so she did that. We hung up. So I'm thinking about it and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm going to answer the phone if he calls. I've got his phone number and I'll know it's him because there's no way he's going to, talk to me to help him.
Mhm.
And, but he called and I answered and we began to talk. His name's Pete Buffalo Head. And we began to talk. And he had me come up there where he is. Oh my gosh, we've got funny, funny stories of stuff that happened while we were there. And we became very close. I call him my taller other brother. I have a lot of brothers in this, but and so he was my introduction into the Bigfoot research world because of people he knew.
So
And
you are still resisting. I mean, it seems to me like you just resisted it but you would take a baby step, but you were still in your mind, you were resisting it. And it was, it was almost like once you connected with him, it was just a roller coaster after that. You were in, no backing out.
yeah, yeah, I was thrown in amongst the Philistines. So, but it was okay because it was where I was supposed to be. I was supposed to come into this and just tell the truth of my life and share those things, even though that there was such a tiny percentage of people who even believed part of it at that point. But I knew that's what I was supposed to do. Now, it still bothered me And I went to an elder and talked to him. And I told him, I said, I just feel like I'm outing them, that, this is not something that needs to be done, even though I knew it was going to be done. I did not want to disrespect them. I was taught, most of my life, I didn't talk about them. And now here you've got me talking to people about them who are calling me crazy. They made fun of my grandmother. They did all kinds of horrible, horrible things to me. And I was just so afraid I was going to be in disrespect. And I told him, I said, I don't want to out them. And he said, you haven't outed them. They have done this themselves. You go back to the Patterson Gimlin film. Yeah. You knew about them at that time, but you weren't out there talking about them. But they did that with a purpose. That wasn't a chance thing. And I'm sure Tom said the same thing. It wasn't a chance thing that Patty showed herself.
Wow.
Because she didn't have to stay there and be filmed.
No, that's
They
true.
didn't have to see her at all, but they did.
Wow.
So, he helped me a lot, and Kashima helped me. I just kept saying, I do not want to disrespect you. If I do anything that hurts you or the family, then go away from me. Just go away from me. That would have been heartbreaking. But that's how I felt about it. And how strongly, I felt about it. So, but of course that didn't happen. And thank goodness, I was taught that I didn't measure myself by what anybody said about me. I grew up like that. So I already had that foundation. And with Kashima's help, he made all the difference in the world. And I knew I was supposed to be doing what I was doing. And if people chose to disrespect him or the family or me or my grandmother, there was really nothing I could do about it. But the one thing I always did was to send them peace and love in their life. Because I know if you have peace and love in your life, then all that other stuff, it's not going to happen. You're not going to go around disrespecting others. This one person called my grandmother a fake Indian, and a lot of other things. I had my life threatened. I
Wow.
had some lies told on me that could have put me in jail, and I had a steep fine between $50,000 and $100,000. I had to prove that I did not do that,
Wow.
but it never stopped me from talking about them and sharing, my experiences.
So I mean, I'm just, so these people that were doing this, they didn't believe in Bigfoot, or they didn't want you to talk up for because for
I
Bigfoot.
had both sides. I had both sides come at me. There was a young woman that I had met, and we talked a lot. And she had been in some little film or something about them. I can't even remember what the name of it was. But she decided that what I was doing was wrong and that I better not be talking about them And if I did talk about them, she was going to plaster my picture all over the internet and TV and have people saying bad things to me. So I got it from both sides. That was
Wow.
okay too. That was okay too. All I knew to do was to do her the same way, send her peace and love. That's where she could grasp and understand for herself. It's been a crazy ride as far as humans are concerned, but it was okay. I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do. And it takes a lot. Well, actually, nobody was able to, and they tried to shut me up. I had one man try to get me to go to a place where he said he had had an encounter, and it was here in Oklahoma. And he said, "Could you come?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a good friend and he'll come with me." And he said, "Oh, no, I don't think they'll show themselves if anybody's there but you." Well, what we found out about this man, he was a part of a group who didn't believe what I said and had done, stuff. And they were trying to get me up there, and then they were going to be out there in those woods and try to scare me.
Wow.
So, but I always had somebody watching my back, and somebody always got wind of something and came to me with it. So, would I do all this over again knowing that? Yeah. Yeah, I would in a heartbeat because, I know I've done what I'm supposed to. Uh, Nobody's been able to shut me up, and I won't shut up. Not until I'm told, you're okay now. You don't need to do this anymore. I can't see that ever happening, but yeah, no, I won't.
So you started. So when I have to say your teacher because I can't say his name.
That's fine.
So when he showed himself, he routinely started coming back, and
Yes.
that's where he
Oh,
he
yes.
literally became a teacher. That took a lot
Yep.
of getting used to. Do you think they were always there, and they just when you opened up to what you were supposed to do, then they're like, okay, this is the time, or do I mean,
Well, I always knew they were there my whole life, so there was never a doubt, and like I said last week, I never thought I'd ever have a teacher. I mean, my grandmother, she told me about them, but it didn't even occur to me that that would happen because I didn't think I'd ever talk about them. So, why would I need a teacher to teach me things? And of course, in my mind, the teacher was going to teach me about them. But in the reality is he taught me about myself. So, yes, I did learn a lot, and I have learned a lot, and I'm sure I'll continue, to learn about this. So, it's the reality of my life. And I love now that I see so many people not afraid to stand up and say, "This is what I'm seeing," and I'm sharing it. Yeah, I had a man at the conference in Richland, Washington that Tom uh, did back in 2012. That was my first big conference that I spoke at. I had spoke two other times, and I don't know how many podcasts I'd done by that time. But there was a man in the audience. He had books and a notebook and a bunch of other stuff, and he had a young man with him. And he just had that disbelief attitude. And I was talking about things, and anybody can ask me a question at any point when I'm speaking.
Mhm.
And so someone had asked about fire. And I said, well, they can have fire if they choose to have fire, they could. They don't have to. And I had talked about, they do this and this and this and this, and all of the interactions and stuff that had happened. And he then point blank, he asked me, he said, so you're saying that they can do all of this, but they don't have fire? I said, they don't have to have fire. I said they could if they chose. He said, well, no, you're saying that they don't have fire. And I just looked at him and he said, you're out of order. And I said, excuse me. He said, you're out of order. Fire should have been way before anything you started talking about as things that they do. I was out of evolutionary order as far as he was concerned.
How did you handle that?
I was very polite to him, and I'm never not polite to anybody. I might not want to be polite to you, but I will be. And so after the conference, or after some of us had spoke, they took a break, and one young woman that I had met and became close to, that was her first time ever at a conference. She was just learning everything, and she was behind him and his younger man. And the guy said to the younger boy, she's way too esoteric for me. And the young woman, she come and she said, what does esoteric mean? And I said, well, it's spiritual. Esoteric is the spiritualness of pretty much everything and what we do. And I said, why? And she said, well, he said, you were way too esoteric for him. And I was going to say something to him. I said, no, you don't need to say anything. And I said, he gave me a compliment. So I'm good with that.
So when you were talking about frequency, so frequency is important to your communication with them. Am I hearing that right?
They are higher vibration than we are in this third dimension. They are of a higher vibration. So depending on what happens and how much of an experience that you're having with them, it's going to be if your vibrations are raised to meet theirs. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have an encounter or a sighting or whatever. I'm talking about taking it further than those things. But one of the things that is happening now is the humans' vibrations are beginning to change. Many of them are raising their vibrational being. And that's very important. Now, one of the times Kashima had, we had been walking and talking about, how they do these things that they do. Now you're here and now they're not. And it was like, people said, well, they're hiding or, whatever. And so we were walking that day. There was a flock of turkeys, and the turkeys saw us as we approached. and they took off. And anybody knows wild turkeys, if they see you coming towards them, they're gone. Well, we walked on, and we had talked some more about, changing vibrations and how things can be, and that, humans are going to definitely need to raise their vibrations if they're going to have this positive physical interaction with them. And so we started coming back, and the turkeys had started to filter back into that area. And as we come up over this little rise, and I saw them, I just turned to Gashima real quick and said, "Hide me, hide me." And it was boom. Those turkeys didn't see us. They didn't see
Wow.
either one of us. And I wasn't very far from one of those turkeys, 15 feet or so.
Wow.
I was I was touching my body, feeling my body. Oh my gosh, this turkey, he can't see me. But my body, I feel the same. I don't feel any different. I was like, in my old country way, I said, man, I could spit, that far on the turkey so close. And he cannot. None of those turkeys saw us. That's how I knew my vibrations had changed and I wasn't seen. The
So when
only
you say, go ahead.
the only thing different with our bodies is our feet were not touching the ground. We were a
Oh,
little
wow.
bit above the feet were. So part of this is about releasing everything that brings us down, and it changes our vibrations. So if we release, then those things come back to us.
Wow. That that's a good overall lesson for anything in life. But when
Yes.
someone says, I mean, I'm just a layperson. My husband's really into the vibrations, and I know that people are healed by frequency and
Yes, they
vibrations.
are.
But we as people, when you say we need to bring up our vibrations, is that become more positive or more spiritual, or what do we do to bring that vibration up? Is it the overall wellness of our minds? Is it our mental well-being, or
It's thinking and saying with the heart. Now, the heart and the brain, there's something called heart brain coherence, where the heart and the brain work together. The heart has cells in it that are like the brain as well.
yeah, it
And
sure does.
so when those are connected, then and we begin to remember who we are, our vibrations raise. How do you raise your vibrations? You smile at somebody. You say something kind to somebody. You tell yourself how much you love yourself.
You have a childlike heart.
Yeah, it's very pure intent. Everything that comes from the heart is of pure intent. So anything can be manifested with pure intent. And I've had that happen so many times in my life. I mean, physical things manifest from a pure intent spoken from the heart. So if you shift your paradigm with what you believe as far as your brain thinks, and you open up your heart to the possibilities, then everything is possible. That's where healing comes from. And sound, healing with sound, That's vibrational. That's changing the vibrations. Everything is energy and everything is vibrational. The toning or humming that Kashima had me share with grandmother Margaret's group of people there for her gathering was sound. It was vibrational sound. And what that was about was it's what you hear, you see it all the time now. I mean, you've got Joe Dispenza talking about it, Greg Braden,
Right.
Jonathan Goldman, uh, many, 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 many. I just scratched the surface of the people, who are talking about this and, what's going on.
So you kind of cracked the lid off the bottle way before they came and it's kind of crazy, Arla, because me and my husband my husband tries to teach me all the time. And he's really like he needs to be in this seat right now talking to you because you and him would be on the same. I'm telling you, he as soon as you said it the other day, we were talking about the heart and the mind and how we had started using this instead of this, and this is actually the center of the body. And you wait till he
Yeah.
comes.
You know,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
So when your teacher, and look, I can't even talk English, and
It's
I'm
Kashima. Kashima.
Kashima.
Kashima. Kashima. Yep.
Kashima. When
Kashima. Kashima. Kashima.
Kashima.
Yep.
So when Kashima
Yep.
asked you to play a certain frequency for grandma, was there a purpose to that?
Yeah, it was just to show that this is one of the things that they can help us with too. But if you look at this, there are so many different beings that bring this forward. So many different human teachers, so many Star Nation people who are helping. And the more we learn about quantum physics and, all of that, then, we know that the earth resonates at a certain frequency. We know that animals, as far as the noises that they make, has a certain frequency. Humans have a certain frequency. And so the Sasquatch have a certain frequency, fairies, elementals, everything, even stones have an energy and a frequency. And water. Oh my gosh, for anyone who let's see, Emoto, Nasiro Emoto, who did so many studies with water and how when you direct loving energy to that, how
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is. And then, yep, if you uh, send hate or sadness or anything, how it affects that water in a negative way. So we're all vibrating all the time.
And the thing with the water, it was done in real time.
Yeah, it was. It
That was
was.
the amazing part. I mean, it was pure. It was literally purified in real time.
Yeah, it was. Somatics, which is you have a cymoscope, which would be a plate, a metal plate, and you can put sand on that, and you can introduce vibrations to that metal plate, and you get a design. Some of them make you think of the crop circles and things that we find. And that crop circles are energetic, vibrational symbols. So, we're far past, oh my gosh, uh, I saw a Bigfoot go whoop, and then he was gone. It's that's just normal everyday stuff. So yeah, it's awesome time, and the Bigfoot people have worked with so many humans. In the last 10 years, there's been a huge change.
That's the first.
A huge positive change of how things are going. I mean, the groups on Facebook, oh my gosh. And the groups that are talking about these
Mhm.
things that people say can't happen. And yes, you still have people, who are, you can't say that happens if you can't scientifically prove it. Number one, I never said I was going to scientifically prove anything. I can't. But that doesn't stop me from sharing my own experiences with, what has happened. So I'm loving watching the world right now and how things are changing. This is going to be a big year for letting go and manifesting. There'll be things more than likely that'll happen that'll be really, really hard. But if your heart's where it is supposed to be, and you allow that to guide you through these things, then we're going to come out in such an awesome, awesome way.
And that comes with faith, love, and courage.
Yeah. Yeah. And, be kind to yourself. I tell people that be kind to yourself. They'll say, well, I'm kind to other people. Well, then you deserve for you to be kind to yourself and love yourself. How can you truly love somebody else until you can love yourself? You're this awesome, awesome being, here dealing with things every day and knowing that, have faith in yourself. They use the cross symbol in their glyphs and stuff with me a lot, and not just the Bigfoot people, but the fairies use that with me as well, and others, because for me, they know that's a symbol of faith, having faith. But it's about having faith in myself that I'm doing. That I don't know if I said it last week. I think I probably did because I say it all the time. What Maya Angelou said, I did the best that I could do until I knew to do better.
Yes, you did.
And so whatever you do, don't beat yourself up about it, and don't hold anger. And if you want to be peace, then you can't be sending out hate. You can't be posting on your page a bunch of hateful stuff about what's going on in the world, because what you put out is what you're going to get back.
Well, I'm
That
guilty of that.
doesn't
The other day on my Facebook page, I put that I didn't want no drama BS in my group.
that's not that's not that's the truth. That's speaking your truth. This is, what
Um,
this is how it's going to be.
I do have one question, and I hope it's not inappropriate, but are there are those people that have, and you and I both don't try to tell someone, their experience didn't happen or what. And because I know how it feels for people to tell me mine didn't. But for those people that have had a negative experience or have encountered, the Bigfoot, the Dogman, and they feel like there's an evil presence about it. Is there good and bad in everything? Or is that, and I'm
Well,
not trying to be,
we create that. We create a big part of the experience because of what we believe. If we believe that they're this big bad thing that's out in the woods, if we've fed ourselves a whole bunch of scary stories when we really don't know if that's the truth or not, but it's what we're believing, then yeah, your encounter could be pretty scary. It could, So what you believe about them is going to factor into your encounter. And I've seen that happen time, and like the story I told about the young man, he had already said, he didn't know what they were and he was afraid.
mhm.
So what's he going to think if, you know, one comes up really close, what's he going to think?
Yeah. And they're
Now,
different, and they
was
look different, and they're huge,
they
and
are, and they're big, they're hairy, and they're loud sometimes. And I think the thing that throws people off so bad is the size, definitely, the sound, definitely, but also that they just totally don't understand about them and their nature. I mean, I've had people say they don't want fairies around them at all. They've got to be evil. Well, that person believes already that they're evil. So, what kind of experience is going to be created when they have an experience? When they see, fairies or little people or even the Star Nation people? What are they going to say? Well, what they think about those things is going to factor into that encounter. And like we said last week, people say, oh, they were trying to get in my house, they were rattling my doorknob and all this. If they were trying to get in your house, they would have been in your house. No door or is going to keep them out if they wanted to get in your house. I mean, so you have to begin to shift your paradigm about who these people are and get past that. And that's been a big part of what I've tried to help people do for themselves, is to shift that paradigm and start looking for the positive. And now there are so many positive, good stories out there. When I came into this years ago, oh my gosh, it was really bad. Every one of them was going to eat you, and please don't take your kids out. They'll take your kids and do whatever, and so my whole thing's been about sharing my experiences and education, trying to help people understand that they're not what I'm 74 years old. I have never once had a bad encounter, ever. I've been all over the United States. I backpacked and hiked and primitive camped by myself a lot of times. I
wow.
have been all over. I have had numerous encounters. Not once was I ever afraid, or did they try to hurt me?
Wow.
So, but there again, I was never taught to fear them. And the one thing I don't do is I don't go on YouTube and listen to all these scary encounters. I don't read these books that people are putting out that puts that scary thing on them,
Mm.
you know. So David Paulides has the books, the 411
Mhm.
books about people missing. And I talked to David years ago. I've done conferences with him. I've been in the woods with him years ago. And I told him when he was talking about this book, writing it, actually, when he was writing it, and I said, well, you know what's going to happen is because your name is associated with the Bigfoot, people are automatically going to think that you're talking that the Bigfoot have taken these people. And, he said, that's not my intention. That's not why I'm writing the book. And of course, I knew that. But past that, the association of the books he had already written of being with the Hoopa people and, set the precedence. I mean, he was in the big DNA. He was one of the forefront people in the DNA study. And so people knew him. So if I were to put out a book about all these women who've been going in the woods and started disappearing, what would people think?
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, they know me as being associated, with the Bigfoot people. So,
Well, yeah. And there'll always be people with those views. And the the one thing that I try to do with the show is I try to have people with the different mindsets and the different views, because I kind of feel like, well, they have a right to say what they have, they feel, they think, or wherever. But I also feel like by having an open platform is where communication starts.
oh, it
And
does. Yeah,
I
it
think
does.
what I've seen here lately is, there's a lot of drama on Facebook, but I've also see a lot of groups starting to just kind of wipe out the drama
Yeah.
and the communication with. I've seen communication get better. They don't always agree, but their tone toward each other
Yep.
has changed, and they're actually starting to tolerate and communicate that someone can think different and be different.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
that
I totally
a
agree
big
that.
that has been a
Yeah.
big step. Do I know if it'll continue? I don't know, but I've noticed that more people with a different mindset and a different point of view they actually talk a little more than what they did 5 years ago.
Yeah.
and
Now,
and I'm
I would never negate someone's experience as being scary. It was scary for them. And I would never tell them, "Oh, you shouldn't be scared, you shouldn't be scared there." But I would,
say it's
give my viewpoint, and of course,
yes,
but
and
the
you
thing is, they had a scary encounter. And it would not be respectful for me to tell them, well, you shouldn't have. If you didn't believe like you would, you wouldn't have had it. I would not do that to anybody. I respect that that is what happened to them.
and I
And
think a
it's not
lot
my place,
yeah, and I think a
to
lot of
tell them.
people. I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
think I think that a lot of people, because you spend your time educating and you want to get the word out. I think a lot of people don't get past that, that's had a scary experience. And if they would just talk to you and
Yeah.
would, have a conversation like we should as people, they would
Yeah.
understand that about you. And
You
I
know,
think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that anyone could have, because you don't, downplay someone's experience. You don't do that.
no.
But what you do offer is communication and the willingness to share your experiences on that.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think you have
Yeah.
touched just, you know, you've got a lot to share, and we've just touched the surface of it, as I would tell Tom. And it's been a very, very interesting journey, and you really hit on some stuff that, the frequency, the how we think, we should think with our heart. It's not just wearing your heart on your shoulders. The heart has cells like the
No.
brains do, or
Yes, it
does.
does.
And I didn't know that
It
till
can
recently.
think.
So when you say those things to me, because I have a husband that studies that, what I hear you say makes more sense than it would have to me 6 months ago,
Yeah.
because I was fortunate enough to have a husband that, I mean, I knew frequency heals. And if I don't get that right, somebody out there in YouTube land will leave a comment and correct me. But I think frequency heals. That's something I kind of knew all of my life. But because my husband is a very spiritual person, and he learns, he reads a lot, and he's very skeptical. So he don't just read one thing. He kind of, um, what you have said a lot makes a lot of sense to me, because I was fortunate enough to have someone in my home that kind of laid that platform out for me and opened that door. So I see exactly what you're saying about what you radiate out is what you get back.
Yeah.
And the getting a higher energy and the higher frequency is really about letting go. Don't say, now, don't get me wrong. I always carry women when I go in the woods, because people are crazy. I carry for crazy people. Okay. Um,
They don't
people,
care. They don't
I,
care if you have a gun. The Bigfoot people are not concerned about a gun. They are concerned about a person's attitude with a gun. The gun is nothing. And that's like in, the story of Rick Taylor, uh, when he was with me and he got to see the family, when they stopped him and mine spoke to him, what are you doing with that gun? His, he knew immediately, oh man, I got to tell the truth, you know.
yeah,
So he explained back to them through mind speak, thinking back to them why he had the gun. So it's not that you have a gun, it's who has the gun.
yeah,
And
exactly.
what are you going to do with a gun if you get in a particular situation? Now, one of the things that they're going to do, they already know who you are and what is going to go on if something pushes you. And so a lot of times they just won't do anything. You just won't know they're there. You won't see them. You won't have anything. So, like I said, it's not that you have a gun; it's who has the gun.
Yeah,
So,
it's intent goes a long way.
yes, and boy, they know your intentions so well.
Well, I think this is a good a place to stop and pick
Okay.
it up on our part three. And I just like the way you have slowly walked me into your world, because I've known you about you for years, and and I followed things here and there, but I purposely didn't go in really deep,
Mhm.
because I wanted a fresh look, and I have not called you and asked you 1,000 questions on where this would go. It's all
Yeah.
raw, and I
Yeah.
wanted it to be that way because to me, it's more truthful.
Right.
And I just really like the way you have walked me through it, and you've really expanded my mind a lot. And I look forward to continuing getting to know about your life and how you come to be Arla and do what you do. And I think it's going to be a fascinating story. And I am very honored, and I'm glad you're sharing it with me.
Well, I thank you so much for, doing what it is you do. It's an important thing to do.
Thank you so much. So hopefully, just stay on the line, and hopefully things will go. I locked Swamp Kitty in the bathroom. And when I let her out, I am going to have to cover my head, and yeah, she's coming out swinging. But I look forward to part three, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone you want to acknowledge tonight before you go?
Just everybody that's out there that, you've got your heart open and you're sharing all of the wonderful things that are going on in life. I'm so thankful for the people in my life and for my life. It's a good life.